come marching in.
I've heard the rumors now, and I want to make sure that you understand that the city of New Orleans is a place for you and your beautiful family. I'm LaToya Cantrell, mayor of the city of New Orleans, and I know, Mr. Wilson, that you will be a great addition to the New Orleans Saints. And more importantly, I can see us in that number winning that Super Bowl championship once again. And what else I can see? The Mrs. Sierra Wilson herself on that main stage during the historical Essence Festival. Just wanted to stop in to let you know that we not only admire you, we want you. Love you, man.
Okay, so she did that. So then the mayor of Seattle responded by tweeting, "I love you, Mayor, but keep your eyes off of Russell Wilson. His home is Seattle, and so you know, Seattle is in the market for an NBA team. Don't make me go there." So we have now reached this stage in the process. Who saw this coming? So it has gotten ludicrous, but delightfully so. So, Dan Orlovsky, I asked you this question several weeks ago, and I'm going to ask it again. Are we now living in a world where we have to be prepared for Russell Wilson to get traded?
Greeny, we are now living in a world where we should be prepared for anything in the NFL. That's my number one point. We all got to change the way that we're looking at this offseason when it comes to quarterback willingness, when it comes to movement, or teams' willingness when it comes to salary cap hits or whatnot. We all need to change the way that we think because this is a new NFL. Now, I really look at this situation, it's one of two things in Seattle. This is either about Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson being unhappy with him, or it's about Russell Wilson's long-term brand and legacy. Make it simple. If this is about Pete Carroll, Seattle Seahawks, fire Pete Carroll. Sit down with Russell Wilson. What happened? Why it happened? And who do you want moving forward? If this is about brand and legacy, if this is about Russell Wilson trying to become the NFL's Magic Johnson in 20 years from now, his mind is already made up. One more year in Seattle will not change that. It would flip to the organization. Then they would have to look at it and go, his star is brighter than it's ever been. We need to move and act fast to get as much as we can for Russell Wilson.
Mike T, give me a sense of what you're doing right now if you're in the middle of this somewhere. If you are not the mayor of a city, but let's say the general manager of a team that is interested. Are the phones working right now on Russell Wilson?
100%. If we're in Chicago, for example, and we're Ryan Pace, the general manager of the Chicago Bears, I'm calling John Schneider, the GM of the Seahawks, and Pete Carroll, and I'm not getting off the phone. If I could get Russell Wilson, who's only 32, who has another 5 to 7 years of great play, that may save my job. This could be this year's Tom Brady. A year ago, Jason Light, GM of the Bucs, on the ropes. Tom Brady comes in, the rest is history. I am doing everything I can within reason and then some to get Russell Wilson. This is a rare opportunity, and Dan's right. The whole narrative has changed, but if I'm desperate for a quarterback, there is no price that is too high.
And it should be pointed out that quite literally his price is not very high, $70 million over the next 3 years. So he is a bargain by current NFL superstar standards. But we do need one level head in the group this morning, and that belongs to Kimberly Martin. Kimberly, as you talk to people around the league, what is the expectation?
Greeny, the thing I hear from everyone is Russell isn't going anywhere. But where there's smoke, there's fire. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the Seattle Seahawks will trade him this year, but the fact that Russell's unhappiness has now leaked into the public sphere, that we're privy to what the issues are behind closed doors. Because, you know, there may have been chatter over the last couple of years about how how they draft, how they go after free agents, how he's been protected with his O-line. But now we have teams. Now there are actual 4 teams that Russell, either through his camp, has put out and said, hey, these are bad options. So as Mike T is saying, if you're one of those teams, you better pick up the phone. Because the Seattle Seahawks may not trade him, but you at least have to try.
That is a really important point to make sure that everyone in the audience is clear on this. These names weren't leaked. his agent on the record gave them to Adam Schefter. And so I will say again, Dan Orlovsky, if you're married to someone and that someone says, yeah, I'm happy right now, but I have a list of 4 people that I will marry in the event this thing goes sideways, right, we have a problem. Yes, we already have a problem.
Yeah, Seattle already has a problem. That's my point. Like, Russell Wilson's mind is likely already made up. This is not just, he's just using the vehicle of, I want more power, or I've been hit too much, to really get what he truly wants. He wants to go to a bigger market. He wants to be appreciated for how great of a player he has been. Remember, this is 9 years of high-level quarterback play, not a single MVP vote, very little MVP discussion. And the Seattle Seahawks need to understand he's just coming off his best season ever as a player. And if his mind is made up that this is about 20 years and the Russell Wilson brand, then they're going to have to seriously sit down and consider trading Russell Wilson.
Okay, so that seems to be very much on the table right now, and as we say, big city mayors have gotten involved. That's one quarterback situation. Let's get to the next of the day, and we'll begin it with today's required reading, which takes us to the Houston Chronicle. John McClain, who's a very well-known and respected columnist in Houston, wrote this about the Deshaun Watson situation over the weekend. He wrote, McNair, meaning the owner Cal McNair, knows they're a more attractive team with Watson than without him. But at some point, reality has to set in. If Watson is traded for multiple high draft choices and one of them is spent on a potential franchise quarterback, the Texans would be much more appealing than if Watson was sitting out, creating a colossal distraction with A.J. McCarron and Josh McCown as their top 2 quarterbacks. Talk about a tough sell. And for people who don't know that market, there was a lot of reaction over the weekend saying, if McClain is writing that, that's a big deal. It feels like a big deal in that city. Kimberly Martin, let me start with you, because you talked a lot this morning in our meeting about leverage. Where is the leverage as we speak between Deshaun Watson and the Texans?
Now, I'm not saying I feel this way, but when I talk to people around the league, their question is, what leverage does he have? He's under contract. He just signed the contract in September, the extension. So is Deshaun Watson willing to pay back, to lose over $20 million and give back part of his bonus to the Texans that he's already received? You know, and when you look at Deshaun, if he goes to another team that has to give up a king's ransom to get him, he'd be going to a team that likely has the cupboards bare. Except for one team. I think the Miami Dolphins are positioned where they can at least say, hey, we can get you, we can give you guys all this and get Deshaun and still be a competent, well-run team with a lot of pieces. I don't think a lot of other teams can say that.
All right, so Mike Tannenbaum, let's talk about that, because the question is about leverage. What is the answer if you're in that seat where Nick Caserio is sitting, and you've been there twice as the GM of 2 different teams? What is the leverage?
Yeah, well, right now, I have a massive pit in my stomach if I'm Nick Caserio, because publicly I'm coming out saying, hey, we want to make sure but I'm really worried that he's going to miss games. So while you do have, because he's under contract, you're really scared to death. And let's put this in context, Greeny. We're in year 1 Caserio. No free agent in their right mind is going to want to come to there until this situation is solidified. Has to go see Deshaun Watson to fix it. In the meantime, if I'm Nick Caserio, I'm not taking those calls yet, and I want Deshaun Watson to know that your best and really only option right now with the Texans, and not even go down that other road, because once that happens, you really do lose control of the situation.
Okay, clearly. And we'll try and get obviously some issues with the hit there, but you could understand basically what he's saying, that there are issues on both sides of this. So, Dan, you have been steadfast all along in saying that Deshaun Watson has taken his last snap for the Houston Texans. So where does it go? How do we get from there to where we're going to wind up?
All right, 4 things. Deshaun Watson's leverage is his integrity, okay? The second thing is this. Nick Caserio, do your job. You come from New England, which is the famous saying, do your job. Your job as a new general manager, you were brought in to rebuild the Houston Texans, not just fix the relationship with Deshaun Watson. You're not going to do that, okay? The third thing is this. Deshaun Watson's not backtracking, guys. Deshaun Watson didn't get to March 1st, publicly say that he wanted an apology, or a trade, excuse me, sit down with the new head coach and tell him, I'm not playing for you, only to 5 months from now go, you know what, I was wrong. I'm going to play for you guys.